The space around Series 7 mining station was quiet and dark. Captain Jake Harrison looked out the window of his ship, the Discovery, at the many floating rocks in the asteroid field. He had been working in space for 15 years, but the sight still made him feel small. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Amy Davis from her seat at the communications panel. Her voice was worried. "It's a distress beacon, but it's very weak." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The signal was coming from somewhere deep in the asteroid field. "Can you tell what kind of ship it is?" Amy pressed some buttons and listened to her headphones. "It sounds like a Zilithian transport ship." "Sir, but the signal is breaking up. I think the ship might be badly damaged." Jake thought for a moment. The Zilithians were one of the big alien races in this part of space. They were tall, gray creatures with 4 arms and no hair. Most humans found them hard to understand because they were very cold and didn't show emotions like humans did. "Pete, what do you think?" Jake asked his second in command, Pete Adams. Pete was a big man with short brown hair. He had been Jake's friend since they were young. "We should check it out, Captain. If there are people in trouble, we need to help them." Dr. Lisa Morgan looked up from her medical equipment. She was a small woman with red hair and kind eyes. "If there are injured aliens on that ship, they might need medical help right away," Jake nodded. "Okay, we'll go take a look. Amy, send a message to Series 7 and tell them where we're going. Ben, can you get us close to that ship without hitting any rocks?" Ben Parker was their engineer and pilot. He was young but very good at his job. "No problem, Captain. Give me 20 minutes. The Discovery moved slowly through the floating rocks. Everyone on the ship was quiet as they got closer to the distress signal. Finally, they saw it. A big Zilithian ship was spinning slowly in space. One side of it was badly damaged, with a huge hole torn in the metal. "I'm not seeing any life signs," said Dr. Morgan, looking at her scanner. "But the ship still has some power. There might be people in the parts of the ship that still have air," said Pete. "We should go over there and check." Jake made his decision. "Okay, we'll board the ship. Pete, Ben, and Lisa, you're with me. Amy and Carl stay here and watch our ship." Carl Johnson was their security chief. He was a quiet man who always worried about keeping everyone safe. "Be careful over there, Captain. We don't know what happened to that ship." The 4 humans put on their spacesuits and used a small shuttle to fly over to the damaged alien ship. The airlock was broken, so Ben had to cut through the metal door with a laser tool. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Their lights showed, them long hallways with strange writing on the walls. The air was thin but still safe to breathe. "This way," said Dr. Morgan, following her scanner. "I'm picking up something that might be alive." They walked through the ship, stepping over broken pieces of metal and glass. In some rooms, they found the bodies of adult Zilithians. The aliens had died when the ship was damaged. "What do you think happened here?" asked Ben in a quiet voice. "Maybe they hit an asteroid," said Pete. "Or another ship attacked them." They kept looking until Dr. Morgan stopped at a heavy door. "In here," she said. "There's definitely something alive behind this door." Ben used his tools to open the door. Inside was a small room with several glass containers that looked like beds. Most of them were broken and empty, but one still had power and was making a soft humming sound. Inside the working container was a small Zilithian child. The child looked different from the adult Zilithians they had seen. Its skin was a lighter gray color, and one of its 4 arms was much smaller than the others. Its head was a strange shape, and it seemed to be having trouble breathing. Dr. Morgan quickly checked her scanner. "It's alive, but just barely. We need to get it back to our ship right now." "Wait," said Jake. "We should try to contact other Zilithian ships first. They should take care of their own child." Pete was already working on the container. "We can call them from our ship. Right now, this little one needs help." They carefully moved the child and its container back to their shuttle. Dr. Morgan worked on keeping the child alive during the trip back to the Discovery. Once they were back on their own ship, Dr. Morgan put the child in her medical room. The child was very sick and weak. She had never worked on a Zilithian before, but she did her best to help. "Amy, try to contact any Zilithian ships in this area," said Jake. "Tell them we found one of their children and they need to come get it." Amy worked at her communications panel for an hour. Finally, she found a Zilithian military ship. "Captain, I have them on the line." Jake talked to the Zilithian commander. The alien's voice was cold and without emotion. "We do not want that." "One," the commander said. "It is damaged. We were taking it to be destroyed." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Destroyed? It's just a child. It is not useful to our society. Its body is wrong. Its mind is wrong. We do not waste resources on such things." The communication ended. Jake stared at the dark screen. He had always known that aliens were different from humans, but this was hard to understand. Dr. Morgan came, out of her medical room. "The child is stable now, but it's been hurt badly. Not just from the ship accident. It looks like it hasn't been fed well for a long time. The Zilithians don't want it back," said Jake quietly. Everyone on the ship was quiet for a moment. Finally, Pete spoke up. "So what do we do now?" 3 days had passed since they found the alien child. Dr. Morgan had been working day and night to keep it alive. The child was getting stronger, but it was still very weak. Jake sat in his captain's chair, thinking about their problem. The rules said they had to return the child to its own people, but the Zilithians wanted to kill it. How could he give a child to people who would destroy it? "Captain," said Amy from her seat, "I'm getting calls from the mining station. They want to know what's taking us so long." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. "Tell them we're dealing with a medical emergency. We need more time." Dr. Morgan walked onto the bridge. She looked tired but happy. "The child is awake now. It's trying to communicate with me." "Can it talk?" asked Pete. "Not with words like we. Two Zilithians use sounds that are very different from human speech, but I think it's trying to tell me something else." Ben looked up from his work. "What do you mean?" Dr. Morgan sat down. "This is going to sound strange, but I think the child can sense electrical things. When I turn on medical equipment, it gets excited. When I turn things off, it gets sad." "That's impossible," said Carl. "How can it sense electricity?" "I don't know, but watch this." Dr. Morgan took out a small device and turned it on. Even though they couldn't see the child, they heard excited sounds coming from the medical room. Jake was interested now. "Ben, you know about electrical things. Can you help Dr. Morgan figure this out?" Ben nodded and followed Dr. Morgan back to the medical room. The rest of the crew waited. After an hour, they came back with big smiles on their faces. "Captain, you need to see this," said Ben. He was carrying a device he had built. "I made this simple machine that can turn the child's electrical sensing into sounds we can understand." They all went to the medical room. The alien child was sitting up in bed. It was small, about the size of a human 10-year-old. Its skin was light gray and its eyes were big and dark. One arm was much smaller than the others and its head was a different shape than normal Zilithians. Ben turned on his device. Right away they heard musical sounds coming from it. "The child is making those sounds?" asked Amy. "Not with its voice," said Ben. "With its mind. It can control electrical fields around its body. My machine picks up those fields and turns them into sounds." Dr. Morgan knelt down next to the child. "Can you understand us?" she asked in a gentle voice. The musical sounds changed. They became softer and more organized, almost like a song. "I think that means yes," said Dr. Morgan. She looked at the child with kind eyes. "What's your name?" The sounds changed again. This time they were short and simple. "It sounds like Crix," said Amy. "Do you think that's its name?" The musical sounds became happy and excited. Dr. Morgan smiled. "Hello, Crix. I'm Lisa. These are my friends." Over the next few hours, they learned amazing things about Crix. The child was very smart. It could sense all the electrical equipment on their ship. It could tell them when something was broken before their computers knew about it. "This is incredible," said Ben. Cricks can sense things we can't even detect with our best equipment. But they also learned sad things. Cricks had been kept in a small room all its life. Other Zilithians had been mean to it because it looked different. They called it broken and useless. "No wonder the Zilithians want to get rid of it," said Pete angrily. "They can't see how special it is." Jake called his crew together for a meeting. Cricks stayed in the medical room with Dr. Morgan. "We have a big decision to make," Jake told them. "The rules say we have to give Cricks back to the Zilithians, but we know they will kill it." "We can't let that happen," said Dr. Morgan firmly. "Cricks is just a child. It doesn't deserve to die because it's different." Carl looked worried. "Captain, if we keep the child, we could get in big trouble. The Zilithians might attack us. The space government might punish us." Amy shook her head. "I don't care about getting in trouble. We can't give a child to people who want to murder it." "It's not murder to them," said Pete. "They think they're just throwing away something broken, but we know better." Ben was quiet for a moment, then spoke up. "I've been thinking about this. Cricks isn't just different. It has abilities that could help a lot of people. The Zilithians are too stupid to see that." Jake looked at each of his crew members. "So what do we do?" "We vote," said Dr. Morgan. "This affects all of us. We should all have a say." Jake nodded. "Okay. All in favor of keeping Cricks and protecting it from the Zilithians?" Dr. Morgan raised her hand immediately. "I vote yes. I'll adopt Cricks myself if I have to." Amy raised her hand. "Yes, we have to protect children, no matter what planet they come from." Ben raised his hand. "Yes, Cricks is special. It should have a chance to use its gifts." Pete raised his hand. "Yes, it's the right thing to do." Everyone looked at Carl. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he sighed and raised his hand. "Yes. I'm scared about what might happen to us, but I can't live with myself if we let them kill a child." Jake smiled and raised his own hand. "Then, it's decided. We keep Cricks." They went back to the medical room to tell Cricks the good news. When Dr. Morgan explained that they wanted Cricks to stay with them, the musical sounds from Ben's device became the most beautiful thing they had ever heard. "Doctor," Morgan hugged the alien child gently. "Welcome to our family, Cricks." But Jake knew their troubles were just beginning. Soon everyone in space would know what they had done. Some would call them heroes. Others would call them criminals. He didn't care. They had made the right choice. 6 months had passed since Cricks joined the crew of the Discovery. The alien child had grown stronger and happier every day. What started as a rescue mission had become something much more special. Cricks was now part of the family. The child had learned to understand human words even though speaking was still hard. Ben had built better machines that let Cricks talk to them using electrical signals. The musical sounds had become like Cricks's voice. "Good morning, Cricks," said Dr. Morgan as she brought breakfast to the child. Cricks was sitting at a small table. Ben had made, looking at pictures on a computer screen. The musical sounds were happy and excited. Ben's machine turned them into words that appeared on a screen. "Good morning, Lisa. I was looking at the star maps. There are pretty colors in the nebula ahead." Dr. Morgan smiled. Cricks loved looking at space and learning about different planets and stars. The child was much smarter than anyone had expected. "Captain," called Ben from the bridge. "You need to see this." Cricks found something again. Jake hurried to the bridge. Over the past few months, Cricks had been helping them find valuable minerals in the asteroids. The child could sense electrical patterns in the rocks that their computers couldn't detect. Ben was looking at his scanner with a big smile. "Cricks says there's something really big in that asteroid over there. The readings are incredible." They flew their ship closer to the asteroid Cricks had pointed out. When they scanned it with their equipment, they couldn't believe what they found. "Those are quantum crystals," said Amy, staring at her screen. "There must be tons of them in there." Pete whistled softly. "Those crystals are worth more money than our whole ship. How did Cricks know they were there?" Dr. Morgan brought Cricks to the bridge. The child was excited, making happy musical sounds and pointing at the asteroid. "Cricks, how did you know about the crystals?" asked Jake. The words appeared on Ben's screen. "They sing to me, Captain Jake." They make electrical music that's different from normal rocks. Very pretty music. Ben shook his head in amazement. Crix can sense the electrical properties of quantum crystals from a distance. Our best equipment can't do that. As they worked to mine the crystals, Crix helped guide them to the richest areas. The child seemed to enjoy the work, happy to be useful to the crew. But their success was bringing unwanted attention. "Captain," said Amy one day, looking worried, "I'm getting a lot of messages from different ships and stations. Word is spreading about us keeping a Zilithian child." Jake frowned. "What kind of messages?" "Some are curious, some are angry. A few are supportive. But the Zilithian government is sending official complaints to our authorities." Carl looked up from his security station. "Sir, I'm tracking several ships that have been following us from a distance. Some are Zilithian military vessels." Jake felt a cold worry in his stomach. He had known this day would come. "What do they want?" "They're demanding we return the child immediately," said Amy. "They say we're criminals for taking their property." Dr. Morgan's face got red with anger. "Property? Crix is not property. Crix is a person." Pete put his hand on her shoulder. "We all know that, Lisa, but the Zilithians don't see it that way." Ben was working at his computer. "Captain, I'm also getting messages from the Corvani Empire. They're not happy about us keeping Crix either." The Corvani were another powerful alien race. They were warriors who believed that only the strong deserved to live. They thought helping weak people was foolish. "What are the Corvani saying?" asked Jake. Ben read from his screen. "They say humans are weak and stupid for wasting resources on a defective being. They think we're setting a bad example for other species." Crix had been quietly listening to the conversation. The child's musical sounds became sad and worried. "Don't listen to them, Crix," said Dr. Morgan gently. "You're not defective, you're special and wonderful." But Jake could see that the harsh words from the aliens were hurting Crix. The child was starting to understand that many people in the galaxy thought it shouldn't exist. The next day, they received an unexpected message. It came from the Meridian Confederation, a peaceful group of planets far from Earth. "This is Ambassador Nova of the Meridian Confederation," said a gentle voice. "We have heard about your situation with the Zilithian child. We want you to know that we support your actions." Jake was surprised. The Meridians were known for being wise and kind, but they usually stayed out of other people's problems. "We believe all life is precious," continued the ambassador. "What you humans have done shows great wisdom and compassion. The child is lucky to have found you." This message made the crew feel better, but it also made their enemies more angry. Week later, 3 official ships arrived near their position. One was Zilithian, one was Corvani, and one was from the Galactic Council, the group that made laws for space. "Discovery, this is Inspector General Hayes of the Galactic Council," came a stern voice over the radio. "We are here to investigate your illegal harboring of a Zilithian citizen." Jake felt his heart sink. The inspector was human, but that didn't mean she would help them. "We're coming aboard your ship," said the inspector. "Prepare to be boarded." The Yabi crew gathered on the bridge with Crix. The child was scared but trying to be brave. "Whatever happens," said Dr. Morgan, "we stick together. Crix is part of our family now." The inspector came aboard with 2 assistants. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She looked around the bridge like she was judging everything she saw. "Where is the Zilithian?" she asked. Jake pointed to Crix. "This is Crix. The child is under our protection." The inspector stared at Crix for a long moment. The alien child looked small and frightened but met her gaze bravely. "This creature was supposed to be eliminated according to Zilithian law," said the inspector. "You have interfered with another species' internal affairs." "We saved a child's life," said Dr. Morgan firmly. The inspector seemed unmoved. But then Ben turned on his translation device and Crix's musical voice filled the room. "Please don't send me back," appeared on the screen. "I like it here. I want to help my friends." For just a moment, the inspector's cold expression softened. She was seeing Crix not as a thing to be disposed of, but as a living, thinking being, with feelings and hopes. Jake realized this might be their only chance to change her mind. 2 weeks later, Jake found himself standing in the biggest courtroom he had ever seen. The Galactic Council had decided to hold a special trial to decide what would happen to Crix. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the huge room. Jake wore his best uniform, but he still felt small next to all the powerful aliens around him. Dr. Morgan sat behind him with Crix, who was trying to be brave despite being scared. "This trial will decide the fate of the Zilithian known as Crix," announced the chief judge, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 eyes. "The question is whether humans have the right to keep a citizen of another species." The Zilithian prosecutor stood up first. His name was Administrator Vex Thulon, and he was very tall with cold gray skin. His 4 arms moved as he talked, making his words seem more threatening. "Honored judges, what we have here is simple theft," Thulon said in a voice like ice. "These humans stole Zilithian property. The creature was being transported for proper disposal according to our laws." Jake felt angry hearing Crix called a creature and property, but his lawyer, Kate Williams, put a hand on his arm to keep him calm. "The genetic defect in this specimen makes it worthless to our society," continued Thulon. "It cannot work, it cannot fight, it cannot contribute. Keeping such beings alive wastes resources that could help healthy individuals." Some of the alien judges nodded, agreeing with the prosecutor. Jake's heart sank. "Furthermore," said Thulon, "if we allow this interference, other species might start taking our unwanted individuals. This would encourage weakness and genetic pollution throughout the galaxy." When Thulon finished, it was Kate Williams' turn to speak. She was a smart human lawyer who had volunteered to help them. "Honored judges, what we have here is not theft, but rescue," Kate said clearly. "My client saved the life of a child who was going to be murdered for being different." The Zilithian prosecutor made angry sounds, but Kate continued, "Crix is not property. Crix is a living, thinking being with rights and feelings. The fact that Crix looks different or has different abilities doesn't make the child less valuable." Kate showed the judges videos of Crix working with the Discovery crew, finding valuable minerals and helping with ship repairs. "As you can see, Crix is not worthless. The child has unique abilities that have been incredibly helpful. What the Zilithians saw as useless, humans recognized as special." Some judges looked interested, but others still seemed doubtful. Then Kate did something unexpected. She asked Crix to come forward. "Crix, can you tell the judges how you feel?" Kate asked gently. Ben's translation device was set up in the courtroom. Crix's musical sounds filled the air, and words appeared on screens throughout the room. "I was very sad and scared when I lived with my birth people," the words said. "They told me I was broken and worthless. They hurt me and kept me locked up." The courtroom became very quiet. Even some of the alien judges seemed surprised by Crix's intelligence and clear communication. "But the humans showed me kindness," Crix continued. "They taught me that being different can be good. They helped me find ways to use my abilities to help others. Captain Jake and Dr. Lisa and all my friends made me feel like I belonged somewhere." Crix paused, and the next words made several judges lean forward. "I don't want to go back to die. I want to live and learn and help people. Please don't send me away from my family." The courtroom was silent for a long moment. Jake saw that some of the judges looked moved by Crix's words. But then something terrible happened. Crix suddenly made frightened sounds and pointed toward the ceiling. "Danger! Electrical bomb, very close." At first, nobody understood what Crix meant, but Ben quickly looked at his scanner and went pale. "There's an explosive device hidden in the ceiling," Ben shouted. "It's about to go off." Panic filled the courtroom as everyone tried to run for the exits. But there wasn't time. The bomb was going to explode in seconds. Crix stood up and closed its eyes, concentrating hard. The child's electrical abilities reached out toward the bomb. Jake watched in amazement as sparks flew from the ceiling. "Crix is trying to stop the bomb," said Dr. Morgan. The alien child was using its electrical powers to disrupt the bomb's circuits. Sweat appeared on Crix's gray skin as the child fought to keep everyone safe. Finally, there was a small pop sound from the ceiling, and broken pieces of the bomb fell harmlessly to the floor. Crix collapsed, exhausted from the effort. Dr. Morgan rushed to help the child while security forces surrounded the broken bomb. The bomb was planted by Corvani extremists, announced a security officer. They wanted to kill everyone here because they thought this trial was making the galaxy too soft. The chief judge stood up, looking amazed. The Zilithian child saved all our lives. Administrator Thulon stared at Crix with wide eyes. For the first time, he seemed to see the child as more than just a defective thing to be thrown away. How did it know about the bomb? Asked one of the judges. Ben explained about Crix's ability to sense electrical fields. Crix could detect the bomb circuits when our security equipment couldn't find it. The judges talked quietly among themselves for several minutes. Finally, the chief judge spoke. This trial has shown us something important, he said. We have seen that what one species considers worthless, another species might find valuable. We have also seen that this young being, despite being rejected by its birth species, was willing to risk its life to save strangers. Jake held his breath, waiting for the decision. The Galactic Council rules in favor of the humans, announced the chief judge. Crix will be allowed to stay with the crew of the Discovery. Furthermore, we are establishing a new law. Any individual facing persecution from their birth species for genetic differences may seek asylum, with another species willing to provide protection. The courtroom erupted in cheers from some species and angry shouts from others. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he hugged his crew. Dr. Morgan knelt down next to Crix, who was still weak from stopping the bomb. You did it, brave one. You're free now. Crix's musical sounds were soft but happy. I want to go home now. To our ship, to our family. Jake smiled. Home. That's exactly what the Discovery had become for all of them. 5 years had passed since the famous trial that changed everything. Crix was now a teenager, much taller than before but still smaller than most Zilithians. The child had grown into a confident young person who spoke both in musical, electrical sounds and in human words. Jake, now Admiral Harrison, stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Hope. It was much bigger than the old Discovery and was designed specifically for rescue missions. He watched as his crew worked to help another abandoned alien child they had just saved. Admiral, we're getting a message from the Meridian Confederation, said Amy, who was still his communications officer after all these years. They want to thank us for rescuing the Vorthan child. Jake smiled. The Vorthans were a warrior race that threw away children who were too gentle and kind. The human rescue fleet had saved dozens of Vorthan children over the years, giving them homes with families, who appreciated their peaceful nature. Any word from Dr. Morgan? Jake asked. She's still at the medical station on Luna Base, Amy replied. The new treatment center is almost finished. She says they'll be able to help 100 different alien species there. Dr. Morgan had become famous throughout the galaxy for her work with rejected alien children. She had learned to treat dozens of different alien medical conditions and had trained other doctors to do the same. Many young aliens who would have died were now living happy, productive lives. Ben Parker walked onto the bridge carrying his latest invention. He was now the chief engineer of the entire rescue fleet. Admiral, the new translation devices are working perfectly, Ben said proudly. We can now communicate with 47 different alien languages instantly. It's all thanks to what we learned from Crix's electrical communication. The rescue work had grown much bigger than anyone expected. After the trial, aliens from all over the galaxy had contacted the humans asking for help. Some were children abandoned by their families. Others were adults who didn't fit in with their societies. All of them found hope with the humans. Sir, we have a visitor, announced Carl Johnson, who was now security chief for the whole rescue operation. Crix walked onto the bridge, wearing the uniform of a Galactic Council diplomat. The young Zilithian had grown into an important person, working to change laws and attitudes throughout space. Hello, Admiral Jake, Crix said in perfect human speech. though the electrical musical sound still came too. I have news from the Zilithian Empire. Jake was always happy to see Crix, but he was also worried. The Zilithians had not been happy about losing their right to dispose of defective children. What's the news? Jake asked. Crix smiled, an expression the young alien had learned from humans. The Zilithian Council has voted to change their laws. They will no longer kill children who are different. Instead, they will study them to see if they have useful abilities. Jake was amazed. That's wonderful news. How did you convince them? I showed them how much money our rescue fleet has made for the galaxy by finding valuable resources, Crix explained. I also brought 50 young Zilithians who had been living with human families. They demonstrated abilities that their birth families never recognized. This was the strategy Crix had been working on for years. Instead of just arguing that killing different children was wrong, Crix proved that these children could be valuable to society. One young Zilithian can sense water underground from miles away, Crix continued. Another can predict weather patterns better than computers. A third can communicate with certain animals that no one else can understand. Jake shook, his head in wonder. All these children would have been killed if we hadn't started the rescue program. Yes, said Crix sadly. But now they will have chances to show what they can do. Pete Adams, now the second in command of the rescue fleet, joined them on the Boy Bridge. Crix, I have more good news. The Corvani Empire just sent a message asking for our help. Everyone looked surprised. The Corvani were the warrior race that had opposed them from the beginning. What kind of help? Asked Jake. Pete grinned. They want us to take some of their children who are too weak for warrior society. Apparently, these children are very good at science and art, things the Corvani don't value. Crix made happy musical sounds. More children who need families. The human rescue ships will help them find places where their talents are appreciated. Amy looked up from her communications panel. Admiral, I'm getting reports from all over the galaxy. The Arcturus Republic wants our help with their rejected telepaths. The Silicon Collective has children who think too much like biological beings. Even the energy beings from the Spectrum Nebula have youngsters who are too solid for their society. Jake felt overwhelmed but proud. What had started as a simple decision to save one abandoned child had grown into something that was changing the entire galaxy. How many rescue ships do we have now? Jake asked. Ben checked his tablet. 237 ships from 15 different species. The Meridians gave us 50 ships. The Earth government built 100 more. Even some reformed Zilithians are helping now. The rescue fleet had become a joint effort involving many species who had learned to value diversity. Humans had started it, but now aliens were helping to save their own people's rejected children. Admiral, said Crix quietly, I have a personal request. Of course, Crix, what do you need? I want to go back to the place where you found me. I want to put up a memorial for the Zilithians who died on that transport ship. They were my family, even if they were taking me away to die. Jake felt tears in his eyes. Even after everything Crix had accomplished, the young alien still remembered where the journey began. We'll go together, Jake said. The whole original crew. A month later, the Discovery crew stood in space near the asteroid field where they had first found Crix. Dr. Morgan had come from her medical station. Ben had left his engineering duties. Pete, Amy, and Carl had all taken time away from their important jobs. They watched as Crix placed a small memorial beacon near where the transport ship had been found. The beacon would broadcast a message in the Zilithian language about honoring those who had died and protecting those who were different. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years, said Dr. Morgan, looking at how much Crix had grown. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had followed the rules and turned Crix over to the Zilithians, said Pete. Jake put his hand on Crix's shoulder. We would have lost something precious, not just Crix, but the chance to show the galaxy that every life has value. Crix looked around at the humans who had become family. You taught me that being different is not the same as being broken. Now we are teaching that lesson to the whole galaxy. Amy smiled. Look how many children are alive today because of what we started. The numbers were incredible. Thousands of alien children who would have been killed or abandoned were now living happy lives. Many had grown up to become scientists, artists, explorers, and leaders. Their unique abilities were helping solve problems throughout the galaxy. "What's next for you, Crix?" asked Carl. The young Zalithian diplomat looked out at the stars. "I'm going to keep working to change minds and laws. There are still species that throw away their different children. But every year, more people are learning that diversity makes us all stronger." Jake nodded. "And we'll keep rescuing those who need help until every child in the galaxy has a chance to discover what makes them special." As they prepared to return to their ships and continue their important work, Jake thought about how one moment of compassion had changed everything. The humans had simply chosen to see a child in need rather than a problem to be disposed of. Now that choice was inspiring others throughout the galaxy to look past differences and see potential instead. Children who would have died were growing up to make the galaxy a better place for everyone. The rescue fleet continued its work, carrying the message that had started with Crix. Every being deserves a chance to find where they belong and discover their gifts. It was a lesson that the galaxy was still learning, but one that grew stronger every day.